So now that we've seen more than a week come and go of NFL free agency, feels like a good time to do an updated mock draft. You've had the combine come and go. You started to see teams plug some holes. So you start to feel like this is a point in time where you can start to better piece together what teams could potentially be thinking, targeting, who they might be going after, and so forth. Even then, we still got over a month till the draft. So a lot of things can change. A lot of things can happen. But nonetheless, this is my mock. I only did one round this time for the interest of saving myself some damn time. So sorry, but too bad, so sad. Reorganizing my entire house one room at a time. As you can see, I put in one of my bedrooms now, this new modified backdrop, I guess you would say. So, and yes, that is a Space Jam poster front and center. You should like that. And a lot of you may not know, my favorite baseball player of all time is actually Ken Griffey Jr., so got a few of his posters up. I've been waiting to put them up forever and finally got around to doing so. Nonetheless, what you really give two craps about, so that we can complain about, is my mock draft. So let's talk about it. I talked about the last time around that I don't know if the Cardinals are truly 1,000% sold on Kyler Murray, or they're just trying to make people think that they're sold on Kyler Murray to try and get somebody, maybe namely the Raiders, to move up from 4 in order to get them. I would say this is like, from the Cardinals standpoint, if you actually like Josh Rosen and believe in Josh Rosen, and this is all a smokescreen, I do hope to God that you've at least communicated that with Josh Rosen and let him know, hey, at the end of the day, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, we really don't have any intentions of trading you and drafting Kyler Murray. We're not going to do that. We're just trying to build a market. We're trying to build up the value. We're trying to entice the Raiders, who have 3 first-round picks, to come up to from number 4 to number 1, and maybe they'll give us pick 24 in return, and and whatever the fuck. Who knows? It is possible. It could happen. But I don't know, man. It sure feels like, as out of left field, they went with the Cliff Kingsbury hire. Like, this was not only a college head coach that they hired to be their head man in the NFL. This was a college head coach who had just gotten fired by Texas Tech because he wasn't good enough, that you now decided to promote to the biggest show of all, the NFL. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's one thing if a Cliff Kingsbury was hired to be your quarterback's coach, or maybe your offensive coordinator. Like, you could have some equivalency there. But this guy ultimately failed in his previous job, so you want to give him that same job at a much higher level with much greater responsibilities. Like, in the real world, those are the types of decisions that prove to be a disaster. Hopefully for the Cardinals organization and their fans, it's not a disaster. I will say this, drafting Kyler Murray makes them infinitely more interesting than drafting Josh Rosen did last year. That's for damn sure. Because there is big boom or bust potential with him, but it would definitely get people to take notice of what the Cardinals are doing one way or another. Which would then put the 49ers in an interesting boat at number 2. Whether they would take a Nick Bosa, whether they would take a guy like Quinnen Williams from Alabama. At this point in time, to me personally, I feel like Williams would be the guy. Like, if they're taking the better player, then the better player is Williams. And that's the guy that they should take. Now, in the ideal world, there would be some type of offensive player available for the 49ers at 2 to take, and I just don't know that there is one. They could do something out of bounds here. They could do something and really shock us, but it feels like it'll be Bosa or Williams, and right now I might lean towards Williams, which would put the decision at the Jets at 3. Do you take Bosa or do you take Josh Allen? I feel like in that case, they would probably take Nick Bosa and not blink, and you figure it out, similar to what the Chargers did with Joey Bosa, and that makes a lot of sense, which then would allow the Raiders to potentially take Josh Allen, or maybe they would go in a different direction. It's hard to know with the Raiders right now. Like, you got Antonio Brown via trade. You've spent some big money in free agency. So what are you going to do? Are they in love with Kyler Murray? Are they going to try to move up from 4 to 1 to go get him? Are they sold on one of these other quarterbacks? Maybe a Dwayne Haskins. Maybe they're sold on somebody like a Drew Lock or Daniel Jones. God only knows. Maybe they're sold on a different defensive player that isn't Josh Allen. Maybe it's somebody like Devin White. Maybe it's somebody like Rashan Gary. Who knows? They could go a lot of different directions. The Raiders are going to be a fascinating team to watch. In terms of the other quarterbacks in this draft, it's interesting now. There's kind of this prevailing thought process with the Giants now that they have both pick 6 and 17, getting pick 17 from the Browns as part of that Odell Beckham Jr. trade, that they'll take some type of defensive lineman, particularly an edge rusher at pick 6, and then they'll take a quarterback at 17. What makes you think that they would automatically do that? Why wouldn't they maybe potentially take the quarterback at 6 and take the defensive player later? Because this could be one of these things. I think everybody acknowledges that this quarterback class is somewhat cheeks. It's not great. It's not the quality of last year's class. It's not the quality of some other classes. It's better than some previous year's class. It's not da-da-da-da. But you know how this goes with teams in the quarterback position. They're desperate for it, especially in today's NFL, where you get that quarterback on that rookie contract and you get it right. You reap those benefits for 4 to 5 years, especially with their first-round pick. You get it up to 5 years. Teams are going to want to take that gamble, especially when you look at guys like Nick Foles getting $20+ million a year and they're average NFL quarterbacks. Do you really want to tie $20+ million to an average NFL quarterback? Or would you rather draft potentially even an average NFL quarterback and pay him a fraction of that amount? A guy that's also younger with more upside that you could truly groom in your mold and the way that you see fit. Like, to me, that's not a really hard decision. And when you look at the Giants, like, who would it be with Kyler Murray off the board? Would it be Dwayne Haskins? Would it be Drew Lock? Or would it be Daniel Jones? And there's just something about Daniel Jones. He's big, tall, white. He played under David Cutcliffe, who was the same guy that coached Eli Manning back in the day at Ole Miss, or Coach Payton, whatever the fuck. The bottom line is this just screams Dave Gettleman all over it, that he would take a guy like Daniel Jones. And I could be way out of bounds. I could be way off base. It could be Haskins. It could be Drew Lock. It could be none of them at pick 6, and they do take a defensive player. Or they take a different offensive player, potentially. There's a thought process that maybe you would draft an offensive tackle at pick 6, and that certainly would make a lot of sense because, again, your quarterback that you currently have is cheeks. You got to at least protect him better, for crying out loud. But in terms of that, just keep that in mind. Like, just this prevailing thought that all of a sudden that the Giants would take a different player at 6 and then a quarterback at 17. Who the fuck's to say that any of those quarterbacks they would like would be there at 17? It's just a thought. Which then leaves you the question, where do you have Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock going? Well, I have Dwayne Haskins going number 11 to Cincinnati. I'm fully convinced that the Bengals are very, very, very intent on seriously considering taking a quarterback this year. You finally got Marvin Lewis out of the equation. You've got a new head coach coming in. Why in the fuck would he want to tie himself to somebody else's mediocre quarterback? That makes no sense whatsoever. And when you look at the Bengals, they really do need to start rebuilding what they need to have. They have a lot of holes in a lot of places. You might as well go get a young quarterback. And then Miami, Drew Lock, feels like you're replacing Tannehill with a Tannehill-ish type of guy in some ways, although when I see Drew Lock, I see more of Blake Bortles with a stronger arm, which, newsflash, means that's not a good thing. But nonetheless, Drew Lock has some athleticism. He's got good size. He's got a big arm. Somebody's going to fall in love, and somebody's going to take him in round 1. I'd be stunned if it didn't happen. And I've seen some guys on Twitter allude to that people in NFL scouting departments, front offices really like Drew Lock and his makeup and his football character. And you know what? That's all fine and good. But that's also a reminder of why every few years a lot of these guys are fucking fired. Just saying. But anyways, that's my mock draft. You can check it out in the description box and shit on me all for it. Yes, yes, yes. I understand. You hate me. I love you. Bye.